Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel. I know it's been a while, but this is actually my first video in my apartment. I'm very excited to welcome you into the new setup I have here, but I also want to jump right into the video, so I'm going to go ahead and just get started because there's going to be a lot in this one. I wanted to get a little bit out of my comfort zone with making this video, so I decided that I was going to make a video talking a little bit about my thoughts on the current dating economy a little bit, and I'm going to be targeting a very specific niche of this conversation because I have seen so many people, TikTok, Twitter, Facebook, even coming to my own stream, talking about finding a partner to be in a relationship with. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. I'm going to rope in some economics. I'm going to rope in some general assertions about how things are. But I'm going to be very fair and clear, and wait until you hear the end of the video where I propose a solution to the issues that I bring up, rather than just jumping down my throat right away. And as always, in the comments, keep it civil. I don't want to have to be a police officer here for the comment section, but whenever I talk about stuff like this, people tend to get a little wet and wild, so don't get too crazy. Happy to have your opinions and everything, but keep it not complete lunatic behavior, please. Like, I don't want to hear anybody going after each other or any of that nonsense. So, something that we're going to be talking about today, and I'm going to start with a couple of assertions for our dating economy conversation. Assertion 1, it is important that people are able to start families together and have children with one another. Very important. The reason I am starting with this assertion is because it makes the economy work. If a population gets too small, economy can't grow, it falls apart. If economy falls apart, whole country falls apart. People in that country suffer. So it is bad if economy fall apart. Good if people are having children. That's assertion 1 that I want to operate under for this conversation. The next assertion that I want to operate under is that everyone should have the right to live their life however they please. I think we can all agree on that. Like I said, no lunatic behavior. I know there's lunatics who don't believe that, but that's the second assertion we're going to operate under this conversation with. And the third assertion that we're going to operate this conversation under is that we got to come up with a solution to this because it's a problem. So, the specific thing that I want to talk about today with those three assertions in mind is that I want to talk about that nobody seems to be able to find any partners. Let's discuss a little bit here a bell curve of attractiveness. Let's just assume that people in general are attractive on a bell curve, okay? So a vast majority of men's are 5s in that market value, and a vast majority of women are 5s in market value. Think about it like we're talking about economics here, because that makes it easier to discuss solutions, problems, and everything in between. So, assuming that a vast majority of people are 5, we're going to refer to that as our middle class. People who are 8 and above, that's going to be extremely high class, and people who are 3 and below are going to be untouchable low class. Okay? And when I say class, I'm not talking about income, I'm talking about dating market value, as the dating market dictates. It has nothing to do with how much wealth you have, has nothing to do with anything other than your value as a potential dating partner in the dating market. Think of yourself like a product. You're marketing a product. You're a 5 product, most likely. Anyway, now that we've gotten that out of the way, I want to talk about how people are lacking the time to go out and create these relationships with one another. And it's not something that I've seen a whole lot of people talking about this topic talk about. I've seen people say things like, oh, the women are too picky, or oh, men are pussies, or oh, the women are rating themselves too highly and it's unfair, or oh, men are not attractive, or I don't think that that's actually a real big part of the problem, because I think that those types of behaviors I just described have always been there. I think that it's always been the case that women typically rate themselves very highly, and I think it's always been the case that men are kind of valued by things like salary, giving things to a relationship, like physical things like a house, property, a car, safety, protection, things like that. I think that those like concepts, those base level concepts that people complain about frequently, have always been there. That's just natural human behavior, is what I'm going to say about that. But I want to talk about how things have changed in the past 50 years. So when the boomers, for example, in the United States, keep in mind, I'm going to be talking purely from an American's perspective here. When the boomers were born in the United States, we had a huge economic boom at the time, because there was just, everybody was starting families, everybody was having kids, everything was rocking and rolling in the United States. And there was also a very big gender divide at work still. Most women didn't work a full-time job at that point in time, and that freed them up to do things like the housework, take care of the kids, all those great things that I commend people for. However, over time, we've seen more and more and more women joining the workforce now, to the point where if you point any man or woman out in a crowd, you can, and they're an adult, you can pretty much assume that they have a full-time job, regardless of their gender, is what I'm trying to say. But and that's great. I don't have any issues with that at all. The conclusion of this video is not going to be women shouldn't be in the workforce. I don't think that in any capacity at all. I actually think that they have a very strong and valuable presence in the workplace, but that's completely besides the point and a topic for a different video that I honestly don't even have any interest in making. Is there people who still argue that women shouldn't be in the workforce? Because I'm sorry, but you need to get out of your house sometimes if that's how you think about women working. But back to the topic at hand, I want to talk specifically about how, because everybody has slowly been joining the workforce as a full-time employee, I'm specifically talking about people working full-time, because obviously in the 70s and 80s, women were getting into work part-time, and then now it's evolved into full-time work, and we have a practically 50-50 shared work environment in the United States between the genders, which is fantastic. I think we're getting closer and closer to things like truly gender equality and all kinds of good stuff. It's always a work in progress, everybody. However, I want to get back to talking about the time constraints and the problems posed by everybody working a full-time job. So often you'll hear women complain that they can't find any good men, and you'll hear men complain that they can't find any good women. However, if you actually dig a little bit deeper into that idea, you'll notice very quickly that on the men's side, there's a couple of problems that they normally run into. It's either they're trying to pursue somebody who's way above them in market value. Like, for example, sometimes you'll see a 5-man go after a 10-woman, and they won't settle for any less. And there is actually some research to support that men do behave that way, but it's a little bit inconclusive at this point. However, through my observations, I do see that occasionally. Another aspect to this on the men's side is that they just don't have the skills to talk to women nowadays. I feel like a lot of young men right now have not had the practice of speaking to women, and you need practice in order to get good at talking to women. You have to. That doesn't mean that every single girl you talk to has to be the home run grand slam, but you should be able, by like age 20 as a man, to have some female friends without sex really being something that you're thinking about with them It doesn't have to be that way. You can just have friends, It doesn't have to get crazy. And I know that a lot of people are going to jump down my throat just for that statement, but it is true. You can just be friends with women. You don't have to fuck every woman you meet. They are people too. It's kind of crazy how that works. But anyway, I'm going to make another video soon about that concept, actually. I think that, one, men go after women who are much higher market value than them and get discouraged when they can't achieve their desired result. I think that young men nowadays are really, really, really bad at talking to the other sex. And I also think that because of certain working conditions right now, men don't really have time to go out and do things. And when I say this, I'm talking about the middle class of men here in the dating economy. The men who are rated 4, 5, and 6, and 7 here. 4, 5, 6, and 7. Middle class men in the dating economy. I think that those men, typically, who make up a majority here, don't have the time to go out to bars and malls. And honestly, even online dating, they don't have time to really sit there and pour through a whole lot of information because they're too busy working and getting resources. They don't even get home until like 5 o'clock's when they get out of work. They don't actually get home probably until about 6 or 7 o'clock, depending on how far away they live from their job. And by then, it's just like, okay, day's over. There's nothing left for me to do. I'm good now, I guess. And the same thing applies to women here. So, like I just went over those issues with men, I'm going to go over a couple issues with women as well that they typically run into with men. One, there's a visibility problem that women have for men. All of the men who would be good partners for them are not the men who are at bars or malls or out in public, really at networking events. Typically speaking, that middle class of men is at home every day resting up to go to work the next day. And that poses a problem for women of visibility because young women are out here trying to find young men to be with, typically. And they just can't find men who are at the same level as them. It's just much more difficult for them because all of them are at work or getting ready for work the next day. And then the problem gets compounded for women because the women are also working 9-to-5 jobs now. And what you'll find is that there are certain behaviors that young women are engaging in that are perfectly normal behaviors and they've been engaging in for a long time, like going to bars to find a partner, thinking highly of themselves, things like that. They're constants. They are constants in the dating economy over the past 70 years in the United States. So don't be surprised that those are the things that they want. Like, for example, yeah, a woman does want you to take her out to dinner. Women do like that. Yes, they do want you to buy them things. Yes, they do want you to take care of them. They're supposed to. That's what your relationship partner is supposed to want. I'm talking to the young men here on this one. Because I feel like very recently, a lot of men who were making videos about this, talking about this, I feel like a vast majority of them are encouraging men and their bad behaviors and saying, no, you're already fine, you're already perfect, instead of pointing out that they have a lot of work to do on their behaviors and their skill sets. I actually see it as majorly a skill set issue, but also a lack of time issue. Anyway, we're digressing here. I want to pull it back to talking about everybody having a 9-to-5 job. I think that one of the major issues that we're listening to or hearing about right now is that nobody has time to go out and meet a partner. If women aren't getting home until 7 p.m., the middle class of women aren't getting home until 7 p.m., and 6, let's say 6, just to be generous. They're not getting home until 6 p.m. All the young men aren't getting home until 6 p.m. They're just going to stay home at that point because they're tired and don't want to go out drinking or doing anything. So that group of middle class folks, they're never going to meet each other in the middle. It's never going to happen because they're both at home. However, for women, I've noticed that this middle class of women, typically they go out anyway. But the problem that they run into is that the men who would match up with them, the other fives, this group of men, the fives, they're at home. And this group of women who are fives, they're at the bars. Well, the ones to the eights are at the bars for women, okay? They are still going to bars. It's young men who are dropping the ball here. We stopped going out as much. So the problem poses itself and compounds itself that women have this issue, the visibility issue I was just talking about, where every man they meet is either really awful or way up here with super high standards, and they just can't, like, it's not a good match either way for them. So one of the issues that's presented by this effect is that all of the people, all of the men who are at these bars or gatherings or places where these young women will meet them are all either the extremely super wealthy young men who don't actually have to work a 9-to-5 job and can go out and do whatever they want, that is ridiculously far out of their league, or, and more commonly, it's a bunch of fucking bums who are unemployed and can't provide anything for them of value. And so what happens is these young women want a partner, so they just pretty much take the scraps. They take what they can get. And the problem is that doesn't ever make them happy because they're fucking bums. They're not in the same league. Like, a 5 woman shouldn't be dating a 2 man. Like, it just doesn't work. It won't work. Like, a 5 and a 6 are like pretty good. Like, I would say you can only go about 2 points above your partner before you'll start experiencing some serious discomfort on one side or the other. So the problem that I'm trying to highlight here is that the 9-to-5 is killing everybody in the middle class. It's killing their ability to go out and meet a partner, start a family eventually, buy the house, buy the car, have the kids, do all that great stuff that really, really pilots our economy and jumpstarts it and makes things work. And honestly, let's be real here, makes people happier because they have a family now, and that makes people happy normally. Is just being wiped away because everybody has to work. And there are certain economic factors that are playing into this. Like, for example, you didn't used to have a 2-income household in order to have any dream of purchasing a house. You didn't need to. You just didn't. You did not need to have that. But now, with the way that the current economy is set up, you have no choice but to have 2 full-time employees living in your house in order to have any hope of being able to participate in the real estate market. You have no choice. So the problem that I'm trying to highlight here is 9-to-5 jobs, killing families, killing the middle class. It's just absolutely destroying them, and it's destroying people's ability to actively seek relationships with one another, which powers the economy, the actual economy, not the dating economy. And it's going to have effects in the way that there will be a declining birth rate, that there will be economic problems from that. And these aren't problems that are like, oh, we just started having babies, they're solved. These are the kinds of problems where if we don't get it together, we're going to see like 20-25 years of serious economic decline in the United States at some point. Like, it's going to be delayed, and this is why people aren't going to be able to focus on it, is because it won't be right in front of their eyes at the time. What's going to happen is, if this trend continues, is that less and less and less and less and less middle-class people are going to be having children. And what that means is that 20 years after the decision to not have children has been made, then you're going to experience the economic downfall of not having children. So the problem is, again, a visibility issue. People aren't going to be able to conceptualize what's going to happen 20 years from now because them and all of their peers decided not to have children. What they can conceptualize is, I don't have time to go find a partner. I don't have enough money to buy a house. I don't have enough money to start a family. So, to wrap this all up in a bow, because I don't want to make this video ridiculously long, I want to propose a solution that has some problems, just like every other solution. So the solution that I'm going to propose here is that we reduce the workday for full-time employees by 1 or 2 hours per day for every day of the week, or we lop off one of the days that people are required to work and make it a Monday to Thursday work day for the average person in the United States. And I already know people are going to jump on me for that. I already know that people are going to scream and yell, but I will admit there are problems with taking 1 to 2 hours of work away from people every single day of the week. For example, the GDP will decline. For example, businesses will suffer for this. There are going to be people out there, of course, who are going to say, I don't really give a flying fuck if every business fails. And I mean, come on, you know that's stupid, first of all. And second of all, I don't completely disagree with you. I don't care if some businesses fail as a result of everybody being happy, but taking a completely anti-business stance isn't going to help anybody, and you're still going to have the economic issues in about 20 years. Another issue with reducing it by 1 or 2 hours per day for full-time employees is going to present itself in the form that businesses are going to look at people and say, you're working 1 to 2 hours less per week. We're going to reduce your pay because we're not making as much money now. And that can also cause economic ripple effects. However, I think that the overall good of reducing by 1 or 2 hours is going to far outweigh the negatives of not doing it. I think that it seriously presents some major problems for us if we don't do this. And because of that, I think that the 9 to 5 is killing families in the middle class and making it almost impossible to start a family, have children, buy a house, do all of these different things. And I think these economic factors really have long-term impacts that people aren't really talking about a whole lot. So yeah, that kind of concludes the video and my thoughts on this topic. I hope you guys enjoyed. Remember, always keep it really civil in the comments. I don't want to be a police officer and beating people with a stick so that they be nice to each other. But yeah, and let me know any constructive criticism or other topics that you want me to talk about really quick. I'm trying to keep these videos as condensed as possible. So yeah, I'll see you in the next one. The next one is going to be actually about Ozempic and why it may pose some very serious medical problems for people who are using it as a weight loss tool. But I'll see you in the next one. Bye, everybody.